What's up, guys? Mitch from RespectMyRegion.com here with another episode of the North American Weed Tour podcast. Episode 71, rounding out the last quarter of this 80-episode season for the North American Weed Tour, looking at cannabis, legal cannabis across the country and beyond. Today, I'm joined by special guest Derek D'Ambrosio from Cape Cod Cannabis out of Massachusetts. How you doing today, Derek?
Oh, Superman, living the dream. Thank you for having me, Mitch.
100%, man. Appreciate you hopping on here. Like we were saying right before we started, you're up in the Northeast. I'm in the Northwest. Very similar. It's craft markets, over there on the East Coast. You guys might tend to feel overlooked for like New York and some of the bigger areas. On the West Coast, I definitely, we feel overlooked for LA. So I think we have a lot in common in mindset. But to kick it off, man, I'm really just interested. We ask every guest on here kind of their history around the plant, whether that's professional and business or just around the plant, and that plant being cannabis. So, kind of what's your origin story with this green monster?
So it goes back real far. So I'm a social equity applicant. I'm one of the few that's made it from legacy to legal. I've been selling cannabis since I was 15 years old. I'm 42 now, so you can do the math. I started like most people, just getting some for my friends so that I could smoke for free. I found out my mother was using it to fight cancer. And by the time I retired, I was using forklifts. So I do know a thing or two about this plant and how to sell it. I'm no expert. I learn new stuff all the time. I've been to Amsterdam, to the shops out there. I've met amazing people from the cannabis community and culture from all around the world. And I'm kind of like living a dream. I get to product test and curate the best menu for my clients. So I get to, do something I love. So that's kind of my history.
And with that coming from these, some people call it the legacy, some people call it traditional, some people call it the black market, some people call it, pre-adult use, whatever you want to call it. Myself personally, I always knew that I would probably see weed legalized in my lifetime, but I say this all the time, like, because I associate that feeling of being like, I feel like I live a dream. Like, I just did not picture legal can I don't know why. I mean, you couldn't picture it, right? I mean, me personally, but I just did not picture what it looks like now. So what's your thoughts of coming from those, being in this as a legacy guide to the legal market? Like, did you see any of this, or is it just all like, wow?
Well, I mean, I always hoped and dreamed it would come, but never thought it would actually happen, especially not in my lifetime in my state. Massachusetts is cool, and there's a lot of people out here that smoke cannabis, but when I was growing up, we had the blue laws on Sunday, so you couldn't even go buy alcohol on Sunday. You had to buy it the night before if you wanted to drink and watch the game. So, so it's going from there to we're an essential business. It's 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 amazing. And the Kennedys, old man Kennedy was a bootlegger,
Mm.
and his kid became our president. I'm not saying that my kids could become presidents one day, but I'm essentially an old school bootlegger, and now it's legal. So I want to make the most of it. There was no way that I was going to let Wall Street people come in here and sell cannabis in my home state without me being able to get my piece of it. So I'm just happy to be at the table.
I mean, I love that mindset. Something for us folks that have been around for a while. I think is such a key component to ensure that whether it's us or someone else, the legacy of this culture lives on and gets a piece of it. The corporate venture capital backed cannabis, it's inevitable, just like any other industry in America. Big money's coming in, consolidation. It's just inevitable when you're talking about capitalism. And I'm not here to bash capitalism. I partake in it on a daily basis, but I think it's such an essential thing for the legacy and the culture to remain here and have a piece of it, because a lot of people fought with their freedom and sacrificed, having a normalcy to their life because of what they partake to consume or partake to or chose to partake in the commerce of. So for a market like Massachusetts, we were talking a little bit before we started, the West Coast definitely carved out cannabis, first, I guess, legally to an extent out west. And
Oh, sure.
so there was before big money and we heard the term MSO, right, like came in. And so for you guys out there, you're at that mix where, about, I don't know, a fair amount of the country has tipped over and bigger companies are coming out. And on the East Coast, there is a lack of craft and more large scale cannabis. Does the community and the culture, is there much conversation out there around like supporting local and craft? Or does people not really even understand kind of corporate versus craft in the market? And that's maybe outside of yourself and your staff, but kind of just the people and the patients and consumers.
It's getting there. So we've had medical for a while, and when medical happened, it was definitely a lot of Walmart weed. You had to be vertically integrated. There was no craft. Adult use just became a thing very recently. It's taken me 3 years and over $1 million to get into this business. We opened on 4/20 of this year.
Hmm.
Most of my friends who are in the business, got over here, are now just opening as well. So my lawyer, he opened his in in Chelsea, Massachusetts. It's called Western Front. He opened a month before me.
Hmm.
My mentor, um, their team opened one a week before me, and then I have friends that opened right after me. So we have a bunch of new operators. There's over 200 retailers now in Massachusetts,
Wow.
and there's so many on the way. We have home delivery operator licenses. There's a great social equity plan. I'm a social equity applicant. They're talking about possibly doing a fund where they can give grants instead of loans to social equity applicants to help them get uh, operating so that they don't have to team up with some Wall Street people. However, I think it's very important to have a solid team. You need Wall Street people. You need a good CEO, a good CFO, on top of the good culture people. So they need to be able to work together. I
Hmm.
couldn't have done this myself. I'm a very small cog in Cape Cod Cannabis. I'm one piece of the wheel. So you definitely need a strong team if you're going to get into the business.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I've heard a lot of people that have excelled in this business say exactly that. That when you're running a business, you don't, even though it's involved around culture, you can't solely live off of culture. Whether, I mean, you can have business acumen and still be involved with the culture, but you need to touch both sides of the spectrum. Whether it's completely separate individuals or the unique unicorn individual that has this corporate background, but is really from the culture. You really need to understand business and weed to thrive in this space.
And I think there are more people that are now doing that, and there's so many cool little brands that are opening up. There's a lot of craft stuff going on. River Run is a great supplier of mine. This guy, Big Ed D'Souza, has been growing bud since the 70s. He's an old school, real legacy guy. And now he's licensed and he's a micro company. He's got a small grow, but he's putting out gas. And um, there's also, just because you're a big MSO doesn't mean you're putting out trash either. Like
Hmm.
for me, uh, my top priority is the customers.
Hmm.
I have customers that need affordable product. They shouldn't be forced to get stuff that's just about to expire or dry, crappy stuff. They should be able to get fresh, quality product at a reasonable price. And it's almost impossible for a craft guy to provide that. But that's a great space for an MSO to fill. And then there's, craft guys that can put in that extra time and that human contact and grow something really special that only 10 or 20% of the market will really appreciate, you know?
Hmm.
And so uh, I'm a firm believer that you need to have a product for every clientele. Back in the day, I made a lot of money off of brickweed that I'd never smoke. And the growers of that brickweed would come in and cash out and buy solventless extracts. And, and like so, there's something for everyone. So I just believe that for me, when it comes to products, the options are getting better. It used to be a lot of MSOs would say, "Hey, I have this gas, but for you to get this, you need to take all this trash."
Hmm.
And now I can tell them to F off, and I'll go with I'd rather give priority shelf space to smaller cultivators or craft manufacturers, whether you're social equity, veteran owned, minority, woman owned, or just a small local guy, I'd rather give them that shelf space, but it still has to hit the standards. You can't just get the shelf space because you're a little guy. It can't have any heavy metals in your stuff, and it needs to be quality or be priced accordingly. If it's coming in testing lower than 20% tax, you can't charge what other people are charging for 30% tax stuff. It's not going to happen. There's a disconnect. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think is very, I want to echo that, is that there is a product, there needs to be a product, and there should be a product for every consumer. And that, like you said, there's, the real heady people in the culture that supremely care about quality and don't care about price. There's clearly, as in any consumer packaged good market, the price conscious. Then there's the conscious consumer that buys based on, what a brand does with the money and less about the product itself. Different people buy different things for different reasons. And as long as it works for them and they're happy, that there should be no shame at the end of the day. And one of the things I wanted to touch on is being a social equity applicant out there is, on the West Coast. I don't know how popular, how mainstream this conversation is, but from my personal experience, it seems to be very predatory for someone to receive one of those licenses, and people try to prey on that. Is that something that you, in terms of, big money guys, see that as an access, the cheapest way or the easiest way of buying a license, if you will, is going through, partnering with the social equity? Is that something that is prevalent in the Massachusetts market as well?
some of that's starting to come out. There is a recent home delivery operator license that the guy that got it worked for a larger company, and that company invested in that service. And he's right now, they're only delivering for that company.
Mm.
And that does look, they say they're going to be, the Cannabis Control Commissioner will look into it and see if they broke any laws or that. Who's to say? I mean, for that social equity applicant, could he have done it by himself? Probably not. He's going to need not just money, but also the experience,
Mm-hmm.
So is it a fair deal? That's what it should be. Like, as long as they're, as long as nobody's getting taken advantage of, if it's a fair deal, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
But in Mass, we have some programs to help people like understand the value of it, I guess, and try to give them the tools and the training and the resources to try to make the most of it. And I think with them coming up with a fund where they could give them the grant, if you already have the money and you have the training to do it yourself, then go ahead and do it yourself. But that doesn't stop you from maybe partnering with somebody who also
Mm-hmm.
has the money and the resources to make you do something better. I don't know about you. I'd rather have a smaller piece of something bigger than
Absolutely.
all of something little. So if you're already working with somebody and they fund you, that would be one thing, or if they're leasing it and you're getting paid well and they're operating it and you get cashed out at the end of the day and then it gives you money to go do something, I think that would be okay too. It depends on, but I don't think any state has really nailed the whole social equity thing yet. And I think that's a big hurdle for why it's not federally legal yet, because every state is kind of like a testing ground.
Mm-hmm.
We can
Yeah.
see, like, luckily when we were talking about this before we started, you know, West Coast, they've kind of had the groundwork and they've like laid the work for us. So the East Coast, we don't have to start from scratch, but in my space for Massachusetts, we kind of laid the groundwork for New York and New Jersey and Connecticut. All those guys are about to go legal, but we're the first one out on our side. And they've seen what we've done and they're trying to make it better. And
Mm-hmm.
I think one day we'll figure it out. I don't know if it'll ever be perfect, but at least there's something, So I've put my life on the line for this. I deserve something,
Yeah, no, every state has gotten some things great, and every state has for sure fucked some stuff up royally. I'm in Washington. They just started having the social equity conversation right before COVID. COVID was the perfect excuse to continue to fumble the rock on that and delay the inevitable of the Washington State LCB just royally fucking up any sort of thing. No bash to them. I know they're just doing their job, but if there was a way to bet money on them fucking it up, I would put quite a bit of money on that. And it's just, it's sad to say the social equity is something I'm very passionate about, whether it's keeping legacy people in this market or making sure people of demographics that have been disappropriately affected by the war on drugs, get their place in this market is something that is very close to me. But, like you said, everyone's done it a little bit right, a little bit wrong. It is an extremely difficult issue. I will not go without acknowledging that it is an extremely difficult topic to approach for a variety of reasons. And we've definitely seen that unfold over the last year. But back to Cape Cod Cannabis. So you guys are in a state where coming out of medical to recreational, the legacy medical operators were vertically integrated. You guys are not. But what are some of the products, and vertically integrated, for those who don't know, means the retailer distribution outlet produces all of the material, all of the end goods that they sell. So for you guys, what are some of the product offerings that you guys have on the shelf at Cape Cod Cannabis?
What do you want? I've got everything. A flower is always the go-to. That's what most people still come in looking for. And I don't have any Walmart weed on my shelves. I have a little something for everyone. I have some Seattle soda that is from Cultivate, and it's a pretty nice hybrid, very fresh, smells really good. I can let that go out the door, $26 for an eighth,
Mm,
$175 for an ounce. So somebody on a budget that needs an affordable product, that's a perfect product for them. And I have other stuff like that comes in. I change it up all the time, so it's not always stale. And then on the other end of the spectrum, I have some greasy runts from River Run testing at 30%, which is a small craft operator. Um, it's amazing,
mm,
tasty, but he had some Durban Thai mixed with Cinderella 99 before that. We're starting to see a full gambit. We have Treeworks makes a great tincture. All they do are tinctures,
mm,
and they're really good. So we have stuff like that. There's Coast.
mm,
These guys, it's a husband and wife team. They're amazing. I love them. They're like great people, but they also make a fantastic product. It's some of the best chocolate bars you'll ever have. Their gummies have CBN, and they help you sleep. They're like bedtime Betties. They're fantastic. Um, we have a new company, Trade Roots, that recently opened up. They are doing some great concentrates. We have some big MSOs that came in, like True Leaf. They just dropped some GMO testing at 37%.
mm,
And they also brought in Blue River, who those guys have some amazing concentrates. There's live rosin, there's live resin, there's cured resin, there's um, you name it. I mean, I have hot sauce. I mean, I literally have everything you could possibly want. And I'm the product tester and the buyer. So for me, first I'm doing my research. I have my ears on the street. I'm talking to friends that have been in the game for a long time and asking them what's fire, what the street wants, what people want, and what my local community want, because Cape Cod's a lot different from Boston. So out here we have, like, during the off season, it's a lot of fishermen and a lot of hippies. There, these a lot of the older hippies out here. I love them. They've been to Woodstock. They've been smoking the
mm.
whole time. They know their stuff. They actually smoke concentrates and stuff. Like, I mean, it's I have all different types of customers, and then during the peak season, because it's seasonal out here, we're down in like a beach community.
Mhm.
So we have so many vacationers that come down. It gets crazy. We have a lot of New Yorkers that come and they spend a lot of money out here, and they want the gas. And so we kind of switch up our menu during the season to have more disposable vape pens and stuff like that on our shelves. But we just opened on 420 of this year because I heard that had something to do with cannabis.
Yeah, it may or may not be like, the Christmas of the industry or something like that.
Yeah, so we're still learning, but it's I'm living my dream.
Yeah, and so what are some of the things that you feel like customers come in and request? Are they coming in requesting price? Are they coming in requesting quality? And are there specific brands or products that consumers are also requesting by name?
Well, it depends. Yeah, there's definitely some stuff that they come in looking for. Like a lot of people come in looking for bedtime betties because believe it or not, most people that are coming in, they're not just looking to get high. Sure,
Mm,
there are some people that come in just looking to get high, but a lot of people, whether they know it or not, they're looking to use it to relieve something. Most people, it's sleep or pain relief or social anxiety or creativity, you know. So we have an effect-based wall
mm,
that there's 6 shelves where we have products that are good for those type of effects and symptoms that are up there. So people can kind of browse and see what's good for what. And then we have the bud tenders we gave them a resource called Seed. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it's
mm-mm,
seed.io. Goes on an iPad. Because we're an adult use dispensary, we can't give any medical advice. But this software uses artificial intelligence to be able to ask the right questions. And then, based on that person's answers, looks at our menu and makes a good choice for them. And then the product specialist slash bud tender looks at it and will step in and say, actually, I think because you mentioned you like cranberry, this product would be better than the one that's recommended. And, they can kind of take it from there. So it's the combination of good training and good tools and resources and being able to teach the bud tenders to ask the right questions because not everybody's the same. We have a lot
mhm.
of people that are coming in, like the younger people, maybe they want concentrates and they'll come in asking for Blue River because they heard about it and it's really hard to get it. Or 253 flower or Nature's Heritage flower, um, the Heirloom Collective. They're known as THC. They're pretty good too. Happy Valley makes a fantastic
Mm,
super lemon haze. Great sativa. So if you're a sativa person and you want a really good sativa, it comes in a beautiful box in a nice glass jar. It's like the Louis Vuitton of the cannabis industry, and the product inside is actually good, which
mhm.
is really nice. But then maybe you need an indica and you're on a budget. We got some chocolate OG that's grown in light depth that most connoisseurs would turn their nose up to, but it's consistently coming in with high THC and low price. So average people love it.
Yeah, yeah, no, I can totally see. I mean, it's true. Listen, the products and the brands, it sounds like definitely that there's something for everyone there. Um, I know you said flower. So flower is one of your guys' leading categories. Most people come in looking for strictly flower at your shop.
Flower, edibles, concentrates, vapes. That's pretty much the big thing. We
Yeah,
sell a lot of edibles and a lot of flower.
and with that, I know you said you guys use a mix of some tech and some bud tenders, but just from your perspective, how important in this buying process is the bud tender?
Oh, critical. I mean, for new customers, if
Hmm.
you already know what you want, if you're a connoisseur, you might ask a bud tender their opinion just to hear what they have to say and see if they know what they're talking about. Um, but you probably are just going to want to order online and go to the pickup window and get out of here. You can be in and out in 2 minutes. But um, so we have two cashiers that are just for to go orders. But if you want to sit and talk to a bud tender, we have 5 registers that are dedicated for consultations. And they're all trained to ask the right questions and to actually listen because, listening to the customer should be 70% of the job.
Hmm.
And then after you listen and you've asked the right questions, then you can make an informed recommendation, and then following up, putting notes in the system. And next time they come in, whether you're the bud tender or the other one is, hey, how did you like that Seattle soda?
Mm.
Great. Here's something similar that you could also try. And there's an app called Tetragram. Are you
Okay.
familiar with
Yeah,
this?
yeah.
Even though we're a rec, we still recommend new people to download that app and keep track of it because let's face it, there's 1,000 different cultivars out there
Hmm.
and so many different manufacturers and cultivators that can grow it differently. It's hard for a new person to come in and figure out what they actually want. And it's so expensive to test this out. And, for the average person, they don't know the difference. Like we were talking earlier, I don't know the difference between a $200 bottle of wine and a $20 bottle of wine, but I can tell you the difference between a $200 eighth and a $20 eighth. So
Yeah, it's very unique to what you know, and consumers are at varying levels of education. And I know, one of the common things that's talked about in the industry is like, THC percentage. A lot of people in the industry are like, I don't buy off a THC percentage in general,
I
although
hate it.
most consumers do. And I had this, when I was out on the East Coast and traveling around, it was, bud tenders were really leaning hard to that. No shame to them, because again, that's what probably 99% of the people coming in request. But even thinking of, even being, just in California last weekend at a trade show, and it's like buyers won't even buy stuff unless it hits a certain THC percentage, because it's not even their personal preference. It's just you can't move it. You can't move it.
That's my situation too. So I'm the buyer and the tester for the store. Although I understand it. Listen, I think it should be around 20%. Give it
Hmm.
some room for terps and all that. On the street, nobody cared. Nobody knew how much THC was in it. It was all gas. It was whatever, like there
Yeah.
were no COAs or anything. But now everybody's a weed snob, and most people don't know what they're talking about. And I kind of make fun of some people sometimes. I'm like, do you ever walk into a liquor store and be like, hey, what's the cheapest stuff with the most amount of alcohol? Because that's what you're doing right now, and you look like a bum. But you don't have the time to really educate every customer, and not everybody wants to be educated.
Right. Right.
So it hurts me to look at another grower that I know he put his heart and his soul and spent time, and these are his babies, and they're testing at 17%,
Hmm.
and he wants to wholesale it for $32 to me, and I have to look him in the eye and be like, I know this is good weed, I know it's worth it, but I can't sell it
Hmm.
at that price. I have to sell this for that price. Like I need to get it for half. And it's so hard because it's what the market wants. So the market either wants cheap mids or gas. Anything in the middle just sits there.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and that's it's something I've identified over the years. Like, I'm not sure, there's a lot of fraudulent things around testing that's happened up here in Washington. I think it's happening in California at a much higher level than it's
Here
talked
too.
about, because there's so much 30 to 36% weed in Cali that I'm just like, this can't be right. Because when I'm in Washington, a lot of stuff's in that even 18. Like, if I see a product that I can see in a jar that looks good and a bud tender I trust is like, oh, this is gas, and I see a 19% on it, that almost makes me want to buy it more than seeing a 30, because I'm like, this is probably some kill, because I don't know why. I'm like, they're not even worried about the THC. They probably just put some kill in a jar and that's all they really care about.
Yeah.
But we
I'm with you.
it's different everywhere, and I get the average consumer, and some of us in the industry, we feel like we're just screaming at a wall at this point, but maybe eventually we'll get there. But with you guys, I want to take it back a little bit. In Cape Cod, you mentioned you guys are a tourist area. I mean, me being over here on the West Coast, I never even been to that area. I'm familiar with the area and being a tourist area. And you said that gives you kind of seasonal different crowds. What is the cannabis culture like in that area? Is it pretty welcoming to cannabis, whether it's tourist or not?
For the most part, yeah. So when I was coming down here building the store, I would rent an Airbnb on the beach and go swimming every morning. And my neighbor was like a retired executive from Dunkin' Donuts. He's in his late 60s, early 70s. And he was like, I can't wait till you open. I drive all the way up to Boston now. So like everybody smokes here. I think there was like an unofficial poll, and it's probably somewhere around like 60 to 70% of the state smokes. So we all love it. There's plenty of money for us to all get our piece. And I think it's going to be very exciting to see a lot of the craft growers come on there and see what they can do. And I'm really excited.
And then for your being the buyer, your guys' process of buying, is it pretty saturated where you're getting just sales reps reaching out to you at a high frequency, or is it more you're able to pick and kind of have to almost source like, I really want your guys' product. When can we get some supply?
Yeah, I get to pick. I have some people that just pop up and all that, and I have some of these MSOs that are coming through, and I like to, to mess with them a little bit. It's nice to tell them to kick rocks. Um, and it used to be a lot different. So when we were about to open up, we were panicking. We weren't even sure if we were going to be able to get product. And now that we're open, and things are starting to get better, we can pick and choose who we're going to bring in, and it's getting much easier.
Absolutely. And back to the, being in a market, I won't call it a vertically integrated market, but with so much vertical integration out there for business supply chain, right? Like owning the supply chain is the way to get the best margin, right? You get every piece of the funnel. So how what are some ways that you can be competitive in the marketplace while competing against vertically integrated companies?
I'm sorry, I lost you there.
Oh,
So competing, so I think I understand what you're saying. Of owning the supply chain is the best way to compete against vertically integrated.
well, I'm saying if you own the supply chain, you get the best margin. So you can, make the most profit or usually offer product at the cheapest price if you own the supply chain. And you guys not being that way, which is a structure I much more prefer. No, I mean, I think there should be a mixture. Like I was telling you before we started, Washington doesn't allow vertical integration. I think there should be no issue in allowing it, but the consumer wins when you're able to have a free market, if you will. But what are some of the ways of not being vertically integrated that you use to compete against companies that might be vertically integrated?
So I focus 100% on curating the best products for my clients, my particular demographic. So I don't have any loyalties to any company at all. As long as they're giving me good product at a fair price, then I'll do business with you. So for me, it's all about the customer and bringing in the best stuff.
And then I mean, you mentioned a little bit, what is kind of the ideal consumer or demographic you guys get? I know you said it changes a little bit season to season.
Yeah, so right now, um, the ideal consumer for me is the locals, the fishermen, and the our hippies and the blue collar workers. And a lot of them, they use this as medicine. There's no real medical dispensary near me, so to help get those people, I always pick a couple products where we drop the price all the way down, where we don't make much money on it at all. It's only a couple dollars, and that way we're able to help out those people. Um, and we have a real commitment to the local community. We have a VIP program for them, so when they come in, we put it into the system, and in the season when the tourists are lined up out the door, our VIPs can skip the line
Mm,
and come in. When we have new product that's either really good or limited quantity, we'll send out a text messages to the people that opted in and let them know that for the next 24 hours, they're the only ones that can get that product. Um, so little things like that really help to gain loyalty and get the customers to keep coming back to us. And they're the ones that are going to keep the lights on during the winter.
absolutely. No, customer first is one of the best ways, being in the business of service, even when you're not a service-based business is a great business model to have. And on the tune of, fishermen out there, what is, and I didn't, I should have consulted yourself before I traveled out there last time. I got to do it before this next trip. Where's some of the best seafood in Massachusetts?
So we definitely have the best bar in Massachusetts. It's called the Beachcomber. It's right on a bar. It's right on the beach. So you're looking at the bar, drinking, looking out onto the ocean.
Mm.
And it's right down the street from my dispensary. And they have great seafood. Wellfleet's known for having the best oysters. There's a lot of different places around here, so I'm not going to name any one particular. I don't want to, you know, I'm not even a big seafood person, but I've had some amazing seafood here. I've been down to the Chatham Piers, and they have, it's not fancy or anything, but the boats come in right there,
Hmm.
and I mean it's as fresh as you can get it. So
Yeah, I had it was in Boston, but I had, I don't know, a Yankee lobster. I don't know if that's like a tourist spot or if people at the heads out there mess with it, but I went there wanting to hate, like, because I live on the coast too, and so I wanted to eat a lobster roll, being like, this is the East Coast lobster stuff is all hype, man. It's just as, this is average. But I had to eat. I had to eat it with a smile on my face. My guy was trying to be like, "Oh, you don't like it?" And I'm like, "No, bro, this is phenomenal. I can't knock it at all."
nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is.
Maine has the best lobster, I think, too. The best prices up in Maine. Maine also has some really good product too. So they're like the East Coast Humboldt County.
That's what you're not the first person to say that. That's one of my next trips out there. I got to venture up there a little bit more. You got to do the whole Northeast a little bit more in depth. What is some of the things, Massachusetts adult market, came live kind of shortly before COVID, and you guys have really only been in business since COVID's been around. What are some of the ways that kind of the community rallied around cannabis, or just the aspect of cannabis being an essential business through the pandemic, kind of propel this plant forward?
Well, I think the consumption usage went through the roof. If you're stuck at home with your significant other, definitely cannabis can help. You know, you can't buy happiness, but you can buy cannabis, and cannabis can make you happy. So, you know, it's definitely consumptions went through the roof. It's becoming way more acceptable. It's becoming more mainstream now, and I think we're seeing it when the biggest demographic that's growing are probably the above 40 crowd.
Hmm.
You know, maybe you haven't smoked cannabis since you were in high school or college. You had your career and everything, but now that it's legal, you're looking at it as an option instead of drinking. So I think that's a really good thing.
Yeah, and with kind of on the topic of consumption, I don't think you guys don't have consumptions lounge out there, right? Or is that coming in the pipeline?
Not
Or
yet. It's coming very soon, and when they allow it, the only people that will be able to get into it at first will be social equity applicants.
Hmm.
So be on the lookout.
That's awesome. That's another thing. The state of Washington, we didn't pass it. I don't think that any plan to pass it eventually. I think they're so stoked to legalize cannabis up here. There's a bunch of shit that we didn't get on our bill that they're like, oh, we'll get it later. And here we are, like 7 years later, no delivery, no home grow, no consumption lounge, no social equity. A lot of these things that are becoming standard parts of the conversation. We legalize the plant, we provide equity. We legalize the plant, and we provide access. Like with the home grow, or we legalize the plant, we provide access to consume. The way the laws wrote up here, it's not, you technically, I don't think you can technically smoke unless you're in a private residence, but you live in a highly, like downtown Seattle, there isn't very many private residences. They're all apartments or condos where there's fire code. So do you guys have any weird regulations in terms of like where it's safe or technically legal to consume in mass?
It's the exact same thing out here. Unless if you own your own house, you can't legally consume it. And we're the same way. Boston is just like Seattle as
Hmm.
far as most people don't own houses. It's all apartments. And I think it's become a problem. I know there are. I've spoken to some politicians about this, and they know that people are smoking in the street and that it's becoming an issue. And they have laid the groundwork, and now we need to kind of film, do what we have to do to be able to get it to be a real thing. And it's going to take a little more time for Massachusetts, but hopefully we'll be able to get it relatively soon.
Is it pretty tight? Because when I was another thing when I was out there, some people were kind of trying to, hey, on warning, don't be consuming in public. Keep that on the low. Whereas back here on the West Coast, Seattle or LA, man, we blow everywhere without any any concern. Is there a little bit of that culture out there, or is it definitely something you need to be a little more discreet about?
I think you should. It's always definitely safe. Better to be safe than sorry.
Yeah.
I know if you consume on the federal beach, it's a federal crime,
Oh
and it's
wow.
a big problem. So I wouldn't do that for sure. And most of the beaches around me are all federal. So you definitely don't want to even sit in a parking lot. If a park ranger pulls up on you and you're smoking, you're in big trouble.
Mm. That's a shame. We gotta give these people a place. Give these people a place to smoke, man. What are some of the obviously in this industry surrounded advertising and marketing, the social media is a very common conversation, the issues and obstacles of marketing there. But are there any obstacles that you've noticed that are unique to mass that you find kind of restricting or provide these obstacles you have to navigate when just getting the word out there about your business?
So I'm glad you brought that up. And I also want to kind of play off the last thing that you just talked
Mhm.
about. So I also own a limo company, and we do a lot of tours. We do winery tours, we do Freedom Trail tours, we do everything, and we do a lot of work with TripAdvisor. TripAdvisor, we created a tour where you can come down to Cape Cod. You can go see either Coast, which is a chocolate factory, or Trade Roots, which is a cultivation facility. You can go tour those places, get the really real Willy Wonka of cannabis experience, and then come by the dispensary and get a gift bag and pick up all your goodies and all that. And then the vehicle will take you to go see lighthouses or seals or get seafood, just how like the wine tour would be.
Mhm.
But I can't even advertise it anywhere. So you're stuck advertising in industry trade magazines that don't get a lot of viewers or um, word of mouth pretty much. You can't really advertise. You can't go on Google. Instagram's pulling accounts down left and right. We're so limited on what we can do. The red tape is really tough.
Yeah, and that's I mean, and it's unique that perspective of even providing tours, right? Like, because obviously the business we're talking about, right? The Cape Cod Cannabis, you guys are a plant touching company, but a tour, right? A limo service, a tour. You're not a plant. It's not what you're selling, right? You're selling an experience. You're selling some, education, and so it's unique that those challenges still persist around the plant, whether you're touching it or selling it or just simply speaking about it.
Mhm.
Do you guys
That's
allow? I
wild.
can't remember. Do you guys allow billboards in Massachusetts?
We do. In fact, Solar Therapeutics is the company that got in trouble for the Borat billboard.
What was that about? I didn't. I don't think I heard about that.
Oh, yeah, you can Google it, but Sacha Baron Cohen is not very happy. They
Ah,
used his picture and his likeness on some billboards without his permission, and he's suing for a lot of money. Um,
yeah, someone made a mistake, man. You can't. You might be able to clip that for an Instagram post or something, but you can't put that out there.
yeah, that's a very expensive mistake.
Yeah, so some green marketing person, man, they probably lost their job over that. That's unfortunate. What do what do you guys have planned? Obviously, this is your guys' first year in business. 420 is going to be the anniversary, which is clearly a great time for you guys to align your annual anniversary party with one of the biggest days in cannabis. What do you guys have planned for 2022?
Oh man. So we've actually been kind of blessed because now that it's the downtime, we got a chance to breathe. We got a chance to look back and see what we've done well and what we can work on. So we're just going to do bigger and better things next year. So we're going to be bringing in more brands. We're going to have better SKUs. We're looking at expanding other locations. There might be um, who knows what we're going to be doing, but we do have a plot of land that we're pre-approved for a 10,000 square foot grow. So hopefully we're going to be getting our babies in the ground and producing some really good stuff on Cape Cod, and then be able to distribute it, throughout the state. And just really excited about just being in the industry. We're a very small player. We know that. So we're just going to focus on in-house. We're going to do the best job that we can do and work with the best partners and provide the best products for our customers.
I love that. I love that. Customer first, growing grassroots the way it should be. I'm excited to get out there and stop by, check out the selection of flower, and get the lay of the land and check out the Cape, man. So for people out there that want to find these guys, CapeCodCannabis.com. And I believe is your Instagram at bluetail.cc. Is that
No, that was our old one. But if you go on CapeCodCannabis.com and you go down to the bottom, you can click on the Instagram thing and it will bring you to this week's Instagram account because our stuff gets shut down all the time. So right now it's Cape Cod Canna _ MA. And you'll see us because of the blue tail.
okay?
So
Okay.
that's us.
Yeah, you start. I know it well. You start breaking into the fucking underscores and the dot things, and we've been there. Um,
Yeah.
awesome, Derek. Well, I really appreciate you hopping on here, giving the lay of the land in Massachusetts, talking about what you guys are doing in Cape Cod. I think it's incredibly unique. It's dope to see social equity, someone that's a legacy guy that's from the culture that's been doing this a long time, get a piece of the pie in this exploding legal market. And like I said, man, I'm really excited to get back out there, and I'm definitely gonna have to pull up on you and come check out the shop.
Anytime I roll out the green carpet for you. I would like to mention one thing
Oh
before
yeah,
we end.
yeah, plug
My
it.
friend Randy Lanier, he works with Freedom Grow. Are you familiar with that organization?
I am not.
So it's called freedomgrow.org. And we have over 40,000 nonviolent cannabis prisoners still inside.
Hmm.
These are prisoners of the war on drugs. And Freedom Grow does fantastic work for these guys. I have a lot of friends from the legacy market that have put their lives on the line that are either still in jail or going through the system. And Freedom Grow is doing something right now where they're raising money for Christmas gifts for kids of where their parents are locked up.
Mm.
So if anybody's listening and they can go there, if they have anything to donate, anything counts. So really appreciate that.
That's a great point, great thing to plug. Not a shameless plug. You're plugging a great cause, and that's it's a staggering statistic that there's 40,000 people locked up for this stuff. Meanwhile, you could get yourself on the cover of Forbes magazine for doing the same thing. It's an absolute travesty, and we just gotta Biden's a play. I'm doing political, but all these guys in office need to stop pussyfooting around and just free these guys, man, and guys and girls, man. It's a
Seriously,
travesty.
I know, definitely. But thank you so much. I'm honored to be on this platform and be part of this tour. It's amazing. You guys are doing great work. I really like what you're doing, and I really appreciate what you're doing here.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Thank you, Derek. I appreciate you. And for you guys, this is episode 71 of the North American Weed Tour. We are about, like I said, at the end of the quarter, about to finish out with 80 on this year's season, and then back to the normal RMR podcast, and we'll enter the North American Weed Tour again next year. For people out there, tap in. What should we know? What did we miss? What are some products we need to check out in Massachusetts and beyond? Thank you guys for listening.